Hello everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm going to be going over the top 10 best Lightning Pokemon for GLC format, Gym Leader Challenge. If you are not familiar with the format, it is singleton, so only one of any card. So if you're running an Elekid, Elekid's going to be on the honorable mention, so that's why it's pulled up. I don't actually think it has multiple cards, but if you had Pikachu, you can only have one Pikachu. And it's mono type, so only one type. Obviously, this video we're talking about lightning type Pokemon, and so all these could be played in the same deck. I don't have any duplicates, I don't believe, of a Pokemon. I was originally gonna potentially double up on uh, something. I honestly don't even remember what the Pokemon is. I'm looking at like the tabs, and they all start with like Elect or something. So oh yeah, I was gonna double up on Regieleki potentially, but I end up not. And I they kind of if you have multiple Pokemon of like the same name, they kind of take away from each other because you can't play both of them. So that's something to consider. And then also we have single non-rule box Pokemon as well as no Ace-Specs or Prism Star um, like stadiums or supporters. Those aren't technically like rule box. Rule box cards isn't even a thing in Pokemon. It's actually just rule box Pokemon, but you can't play any quote rule box cards, which is a term for GLC, not an official term, but a GLC term as far as I am aware. So you can't play Ace Specs, Radiant Pokemon, GXs, EXs, anything like that. And then it's expanded on, or I guess Black and White on is what I should say. There's a ban list, but um, none of the lightning Pokemon are banned, and it doesn't really impact them too much. So, and it's a pretty small ban list, anyways. So let's hop right into things. And first, I will mention I have Elekid. I think this is a really solid card. It's a it's a baby Pokemon. I guess it's not like officially a baby Pokemon, but it's like Cleffa or Clef was the only one that's really seen play outside of Elekid, which has seen a little bit of play in standard, but in GLC it's really solid. It's also very new, so that's why it's harder to put it higher up. But Crackling Shot here does 30 to 1 your opponent's Pokemon for free, and it has free retreat. 30 HP is obviously very low, but it can be really nice. It's really synergistic with a lot of the lightning Pokemon. The main like gimmicks of lightning are very fast decks, so cheap attacks and free retreats are really nice. And then also spread-based attacks, and Elekid like kind of fits with that. So Elekid's really great. It's definitely a solid option. Of course, really low HP, and it's very new. It's a little hard to say exactly how good it is. I mean, it's not brand new, but it's pretty new. I think it's really good. I'm not entirely sure, and we'll see how it pans out. Also, this list is based off of obviously my own opinions, but also I'm trying to base it off of like what cards I've seen play and done well and stuff like that. Next up, we have Magnezone. This one's hard. First of all, there's a deck called Shock Lock. I don't think you have any cards on here from it. I mean, that are like exclusively from it. So we don't have the Lantern or the Raichu. But Magnezone is sometimes played in that, and it's a pretty cool card. It lets you play two supporters every turn. I think it's a little underrated, but it's a stage two. It's obviously a lot of setup, and then from that setup, what do you get? Well, you get realistically more setup, so it's kind of naturally synergistic with control, and not so synergistic with the slower style of play, with at least I guess I call it like turbo electric or turbo lightning. I don't know why I said electric. I guess because electric generator, which isn't necessarily played in the deck, but um, yeah, like a Turbo Lightning style list with well, some of the Pokemon we'll talk about. It's not so synergistic with them, but it's a really good card. I think if this was in most other types, it would be pretty good, but it's kind of weird. There's also like a Magneton that pairs kind of with it, but it knocks itself out, so you can't actually get the Magzone to play. It's really weird. Um, but yeah, Magnezone is pretty good. It's actually very, very insanely good, but it also like isn't so synergistic with stuff, so that's why it's off the list. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on this card down below, though. I actually talked about it in a podcast episode regarding Standard. I think it was last podcast, might have been two ago, but oh yeah, two podcasts ago. It's a really solid card. And a third honorable mention here, we got Electrod. I don't really know what to say about this card. It's a draw till you have four cards in hand. It's kind of bad, to be honest, but the draw engines for Lightning are not the best, outside of one, right? So I think I don't know what else there's besides Electrode and the other one that we'll talk about later. Um, there might be something, but I don't really know. Electrode isn't that good. It's not terrible. I'm not gonna like. It's not particularly amazing either, though, because up to four is not a lot. Um, Drawing four is obviously good, but you're not going to have that few cards in hand. Uh, I mean, sometimes you will, but there's Octillery, and there's Barbarella, which should draw till five, and they're good. They're better. By a noticeable amount. They're drawing you a substantial amount more cards throughout the game. They're both pretty good, or they're both very good, honestly. But Electrod is not as good because it's less cards, right? So it's a card. I don't entirely know what to say about it. It could go lower because it's not very good. It could go higher because I don't know. It's really hard to like talk about. The engine that's better than it is like drastically better, but it's also like a one-up. So sometimes people play Electrode. It does have use cases, but it's not that good. I don't know. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts down below in the comments on this one. But hopping into number 10 here, we got Regieleki. I mentioned this before. Yeah, Terra Spark. There's the other Regieleki, which is pretty decent, honestly, and as it kind of takes away from this one. But Terra Spark here does 120 for three lightning, colorless. Discard all lightning energy from this Pokemon. So if you do have a colorless or yeah, I don't know, because a lot of lists run counter energy, so you'd have to discard that. But if you run like grass or metal energy, which we may talk about later, then you don't need to discard that, which is useful, I guess. You do have a retreat cost of 2, so it can get stuck. There are some issues with this Pokemon, but 120 and it does 42 your opponent's benched. That's 200 damage. I mean, it's not 200 to one target, but it's really nice. I don't think there are really any one-shotting Pokemon on this list outside of one, I guess, but or maybe two, but most lightning Pokemon don't one-shot very well. And so this one also fits into that camp. But it synergizes perfectly with like that spread, and it's a basic, and it's relatively easy to pay, as there is some energy acceleration, and actually a very good energy acceleration with lightning. I mentioned electric generator, max elixir, um, the counter energy, and then there will be some other energy acceleration that I imagine you know that we will talk about later. And if you don't know, stick around. It's actually worth it. And if you do know, also stick around. But yeah, so it's pretty good, right? It just does very good damage. I don't know. It's kind of weird to talk about. It's just very solid, and it fits very nicely into the type. 120 HP is like good, I guess, but 130 is better. And hitting 120 damage again, 130 is better. But you do have damage buffs. You have Electro Power, and you have, I mean, the regular stuff: Fighting Fury Belt, Muscle Band, even Vitality Band. I guess I don't think anyone's played that, but you could. Um, and so yeah, you can just use Regieleki. It's really, really good. As if you attack with this twice, you're in a really great spot. Also, most types don't have. I was gonna say most types don't have bench barrier. They're not like a basic Pokemon that's bench barrier. I think like half the types have some form of bench barrier, and then there are like stadiums. But yeah, next up we got ourselves Tapu Coco. Tapu Coco is a really fun card, and honestly, partially why Regieleki, or not Regieleki, Elekid is not higher. Um, Tapu Coco is probably the best pivot ever. I don't know. I don't know if it's the best pivot ever. Don't fact check me. But certainly in recent history, it's really good in standard and in GLC as well. It's pretty good. There's again another Tapu Coco that is somewhat similar and not quite as good, but sometimes played instead. But this one, it does 20 to each of your opponent's Pokemon, or 100 for 3, and yeah, your HP, like whatever. Oh, you resist metal. A good chunk of lightning Pokemon do, but not the newer ones. So that's pretty fun. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's really good for your treat spread. As a perfect synergy, it's kind of like Elekid, but it's just kind of better, as it doesn't die to literally everything. So yeah, it's a very good card. The main issue is you want to like attack with a bunch of times in a row, and well, you can't because you only play one. But sometimes you certainly can attack with it multiple times in a row. It's a pretty good card, pretty fun card as well. It's one that I think a lot of people like, and I think it deserves what it gets. So I think it's definitely is deserving of a spot in this list. Honestly, it was hard to rank a lot of these cards, but I do think it belongs here. Next up, number 8, we got Luxray. Luxray is interesting. Again, another newer card, not brand new or anything, but it's pretty good. It evolves from Luxio, but you have your ability, if you're down on prizes, you can just play it, which is really great. So you'll probably be down on prizes at some point during the game. And yeah, you can evolve from Luxio as well. There's a really fun, really good I don't know. There's a Luxio that I like. Oh, I'll actually mention. Now, I did write an article on GLC. It's on the GLC website. You can check it out down below to get some of my thoughts. It is a while ago. I think it was like 3 years ago. Might have been four. I think three though. So it's outdated and it's not like the best. But if you want to read my thoughts on it, you can actually check it out there. But yeah, Luxray is like super interesting. I like the Luxio, is what I'm saying, but it's not here. Luxray though is generally played without Luxio. So um, or even if they're played together, you can have them both play at the same time, which is kind of fun. But yeah, you just play it down if you're down on prizes, which is really nice. And then wild charge 180, lightning and lightning colorless 20 to yourself. I mean that one shots a lot of things. You can use this with reversal energy, which is sometimes played in lightning, although not super commonly, as I mentioned. A lot are like basic fast attackers. So yeah, but it's really the best one-shotting Pokemon in Lightning outside of maybe Zeraora, which we won't talk about. It's not on the list. It's not very good. It's okay. It's actually okay. I think it's a little underrated, but Luxray's like it doesn't. Zeraora discards all the energy, and it doesn't actually do as much damage for three. So yeah, Luxray's pretty nice. 180 is usually enough, and as I said, there are damage buffs. I suppose if you're up against something with like 200 plus health, that could be an issue, but that's pretty rare. You're looking at like 190 for Torterra is like a pretty. If you can't one-shot it ever, that's not a great sign for you. And so this does one-shot it with some damage buffs, 20 damage to yourself. I mean, then you're down to 130. That's fine. Um, yeah, it's a really solid. It's a really powerful Pokemon. I haven't played with it much, but it's really good. Next up, we got Thundurus here. Thunderous, its ability adverse weather. If it's in the active, it's bench barrier, so it protects your bench. But it's kind of weird because it needs to be in the active. But it's pretty good. And then you have Gigantic Bolt, which is a 140 for 2 lightning and 90 to yourself. So then you're down to 20 HP, which is like very low. They're always to heal, but no one plays them. So, or as far as I know, people don't really play them. But it's really I guess there's just emergency jelly. I don't know if there's anything else, but 140 is really good. Luxray doing what 80 is, as I said, really good, but it's 3 energy on a stage 2 versus 2 energy on a stage or on a basic. So yeah, really good. Obviously, damaging yourself a lot is not good. It's very get bad, specifically in spread, which is what this is kind of countering, but it does give you that bench barrier, so you could just stick this in the active early game if your opponent is playing some sort of spread deck before you get your Pokemon evolved, and you can kind of mix this in and just protect yourself, and it's really nice. Um, Obviously, it's a little scary, but with like damaging yourself all that amount, especially against a deck that is able to punish you for that. But providing this bench barrier is really nice, and I think it is. It's a really good card. It's somewhat versatile with its high damage and its like defensiveness, which is really nice. I think it's a really cool Pokemon and one that I do like playing in Lightning decks. But again, the attack damaging yourself is kind of weird. It's a harder card to play, I guess is what I'm saying. But that certainly doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's more complicated. But I think it's really fun and has really great upside in a number of scenarios, which makes it just really good. Next up, we got Electivire. This is the big spread Pokemon. I'd say it's the big spread Pokemon. High voltage current, lightning colorless, 50 to each of your opponent's Pokemon. There's a new Raichu as well that just for lightning colorless, 50 to each of your opponent's Pokemon with each Pokemon with damage on it. I forget exactly. That one's very new. When did that Raichu come out? Oh, it was Temporal Forces. Okay, yes. So this one is not on the list as it is very new and probably not as good as Electivire, but Electivire is really good with 3 lightning, just this insane spread. And 140 HP is really nice. You can get stuck, but that's fine. And yeah, you just do really big damage in terms of spread, but you can do up to 300, which is kind of absurd. Yeah, across the board, and it's really good. It's definitely the best spread Pokemon, in my opinion, for at least like a pure spreader in Lightning. There are probably some better ones of other types, although arguably not. I mean, it's really good, and it's really hard to deal with. And there are some other Lightning spread Pokemon. There's a Toxtricity, I think. There's a lot. I don't know all of them, but I mentioned some, and you can kind of mix and match. And yeah, you can do Tapu Coco, and I think, as I said, Elekid seems really fun, and there may be one more that we'll talk about. But yeah, this is really good. And if you attack with this twice, it's like brutal. I mean, it can take like 3 prizes if you attack with it twice, or 4, or maybe not. But it certainly isn't good for your opponent if you attack with this twice. And if you attack with it 3 times, or if you attack with it 4 times, you probably win. As it's probably knocking out all your opponent's Pokemon. If you attack with like 3 times, you also realistically probably win. It's not super easy to attack with it 3 times. And if your opponent is running something like the aforementioned Torterra, this won't do super hot against it, but it is fine. I think it's really good, and I really like this card. But now, cracking the top 5, we get another spread Pokemon. I think some of you may want this higher. It's Raikou, Amazing Rare, though. This card's really good. The big issue is it's kind of restricting on your deck like a lot. Like it has to be the sole focus of your deck, essentially. But it's for a grass lightning metal. You do 120 to your opponent's active, 120 to one of their benched. That's 240 just straight up. Not to the active, but like spread, which is better. This is insane. It's probably sniping some very notable, probably support Pokemon of your opponents, and also obviously doing big damage to the active. Potentially a one shot, often a one shot. Um, it's a little awkward to power up. You do have counter energy to help, and you have tools. I mentioned there is energy acceleration, so you can get this powered up. It's awkward, but it's not like it's certainly very payable as well. It's honestly a card I'm not a big fan of. I feel like I like GLC being like a one type thing, and this kind of to me takes away from it a little. But um, it's really good, right? It's a very good card, very hard to deal with because it just does a lot of damage, right? So and it's a basic. It's very it's okay. Well, it's hard to deal with being hit by it. You can counter somewhat easily, but by just like knocking out back. But it's really good, right? It's really difficult to recover from, especially if your opponent like hits you with like an Iono and then knocks out your like a barrel on the bench or something. That's not good for you. Yeah, Raiku's really good. It requires a big focus, but it's really powerful and it's worth it a lot of the time. I think some people are straying away from it a little more now, but it's still really good. And as I said, it's like really, yeah, it's just really hard to deal with. If you pair this with like Electivire, which you can, then like your opponent's bench is just not safe at all. So yeah, Raikou, really, really good Pokemon, really fun by loved by many, despised by some as well. But yeah, really good card. I think it's honestly about as good as Kyogre Amazing Rare, which got banned. Kyogre Amazing Rare required more deck build around it. It was like literally the whole deck. Versus Raikou isn't the whole deck. There's some other Pokemon we'll talk about, but yeah, Raikou really good. Next up, we got Zapdos. This is weird because there's also Hoopa in Darkness, which honestly I don't think it would make the top. I think it would make the top 10 in Darkness, but wouldn't be this high in Darkness. But Darkness is also better. Zapdos is really insane though. It just says so it doesn't hit weakness, but if it moves from the bench to the active, it does 80. Otherwise, it does 10. But yeah, you want to swing it in. You do 80, and then as I said, there are a lot of damage buffs. There's Electro Power, which you can use to just donk your opponent, right? So if your opponent starts one Pokemon and passes, which will happen, it doesn't happen super commonly, but honestly, maybe like somewhere between 5 and 10% of games, which is some, it's certainly a sizable amount. You just win, right? You don't just win, but you probably win because it's not hard to pull this off. You need a switch, and as I said, there's a big focus on switching, and this is a big reason why. Zapdos, kind of like Raikou, is a bit of a deck build around card, but it's not that much. I mean, it's one energy. So you're doing a lot of switches and free retreaters. As I mentioned, Tapu Coco, Elekid is really nice, and I don't know. I'm sure there's some other ones. I mean, you have like Floatstone and stuff, but an Air Balloon is usually played. But I mean, Zapdos is really good. It's just really difficult to deal with. Just being smashed away by it early game if you're a slow startup deck because it just does big damage and or like decent damage and is very fast, right? It's the definition to me of like a lightning Pokemon, very fast damage, or at least that, not the spread side, but like the fast side. And yeah, most decks can deal with it, but there are times when they can't. There's pretty much a time when any deck can't if they just get a little bit of a sketchy startup, and you can punish your opponent super well. This is, in my opinion, the best Pokemon in the game for punishing early startup, or Hoopa. I mean, Hoopa's very similar, but I think this is a. I don't know. I guess Hoopa's better. It does more damage, but also it kind of requires like a Zoroark, and it doesn't have as natural synergy with everything. Versus Hoopa, and Hoopa's Darkness, but versus Zapdos and the Lightning type, super synergistic. Really good in any Lightning deck. It's really, really good. Next up, we got a tie for second, actually. I mean, we don't actually have a tie, but well, you'll see. It's Electric and a Flaffy. Electric and Flaffy are like the same Pokemon. Literally, they have exactly the same HP, attack, ability, retreat cost, weakness, resistance, and stage. I don't know. The only difference is they evolve from different Pokemon, which actually matters a lot. But what they do, their attack is bad. But Dynamotor, once during a turn, you may attach a basic lightning energy from your discard to one of your bench Pokemon. I believe it has. I believe it can't be like flash energy. Um, I know it can't be like most special energies, but certain special energies have weird rulings. Anyway, yeah, this is really good. We've seen this ability on other types, but this is the only type to have two of it, and so it's a very fundamental part because it's consistent now that you have two. So you can get one up pretty much all the time. You can get two up a decent chunk of the time if you want, and it's just really good. I mean, you can power up your Electivire, your Luxray, your Regieleki. Um, yeah, there aren't a ton of massive and lightning energy attackers, but that's fine because this is just a little bit of energy acceleration to keep you going. There's a lot of discard as well, so you'll be losing a lot of resources. And so this is also forming like somewhat of a recovery card, which is really interesting. Um, like you're just recovering your energy, and obviously it's accelerating them, but it's not. It's not like, oh, I'm having these massive attacks where I need like electric and flaffy, and I'm just really struggling. No, you just need one or both is nice certainly, but then you just get these attackers that are very solid, and you just get like an extra energy every turn, which is really nice and really great. Um, but it's not like you lose if you don't have them in play, but you can kind of build around them consistently. Um, it's just really good. I mean, it's just a really good ability. As I said, there are some Pokemon that really like it. Raikou Amazing Rare as well. You can just power stuff up in one turn, much easier because there is some other acceleration as well. There's like Raihan. Counter energy, I guess, is kind of acceleration, and they're just really good. If you've ever played with any cards like these, if you played with Flaffy, which recently rotated, it was good. It was kind of sketchy because you needed like a lot of them in play, and there's some weird stuff, but and there's spread as well. But in GLC, there's not that much spread. There's some, but yeah, you're not punished as much by having them in play. It's not like they're detriment to have in play, so they're just really good, right? And as I said, you run a lot of switch, so it's not really gonna get stuck in the active most likely. And yeah, it's just really, really good. And then Flap is higher because of Mareep and Ampharos, but mostly Mareep. There's an insane Mareep that like puts your opponents active to sleep. It was played as essentially its own deck in standard. It was not exclusively, but it was a big part of its own deck in standard, which is obviously good for it. And then there's a lot of Amphoroses, right? There are not as many Electroses. There are some, but the best one doesn't even evolve from it. You just play it separately, kind of like the Luxray. So yeah, I don't know actually what the best Electros is. I was gonna say it's this. Uh, wait, how do I spell Electros? Um, there we go. Um, yeah, I don't know. Something ain't working right. Um, Anyway, so I'm certainly selected something wrong, but that is fine. So the Electros that I want to show you though is going to be this one. There we go. It's two E's. Why do they do this? Why do they? Okay, yeah. So I think this is the best Electros, but there's a lot. There's a few. But then in terms of Mareeps, there's this one, Fluffy Pillow, 50 HP, but I mean it's good. The Tynamos have less HP, so yeah. And then the Ampharos. And these are not all legal, but most of them are. And there's a lot more. I mean, you can't play the GXs and the Vs and EXs, but okay, there's not as many more as I thought, but I like this Ampharos. I know it's not good, but I like it. And I think this one's played, or this one, or sometimes this one. I don't know, but they're better than the Electroses. Lastly, though, number one spot, we have Zebstrika. Sprint, discard your hand, draw four. It's insane. Like, it's really good. Some people may say, oh, discarding your hand is like really bad because, they're all one-ups. But I mean, it's not that bad. You're kind of focused around when you're a really fast deck. It's not that bad. And so you will play some more recovery, and you're focused on like these fast attacks. It's the perfect engine for lightning. And other types, it's not as good, but it's still really good. Discarding draw four because it's draw for every turn versus you look at other engines like all of them, they don't draw for every turn. even the best one, like even something that's like draw till 6 isn't going to be draw 4 every turn. So it's really great. Obviously, if you need combo pieces, it's not so good, but you're mostly basics and some stage ones and like a bunch of energies that don't really need to go in any order outside of the stage ones, which are there are only a few of, and you can recover, and it's not that hard. So yeah, Sprint's absolutely insane. You can deck out. There was Lysander's trump card previously, and that got banned very early in the format. That was very good with this, but I mean, this is a really good card. It just like lets you draw lots of cards and can discard stuff, discard energy for the electric and the Flaffy, and also um, it's just really fast, right? It's the fastest engine in the game. I think this card's really good. Maybe I'm overrating it, but it's really good. I mentioned Electrode. This is like drastically better than Electrode because you draw essentially more cards every time. And you can't really get bogged down with a bad hand. That's the big issue with like Barrel and maybe not Barrel because you do have Scovet, but you don't always have Scovet in play. And same thing with Artillery. You can get these like hands that are just not what you're looking for, and then you're stuck, and then you can't do anything. That doesn't happen with the Zipstrika. Also, I did mention Shock Lock. Zipstrika is very good in that. It's just perfect synergy with the Lightning type, in my opinion. It's one of my favorite cards, honestly, ever. Maybe not ever. It's a really cool card. And obviously you can attack with it as well. Its attack's not even that bad. Not your preferred choice, but you can use it. But I mean, Zepstrike is just a really good card. Really difficult to deal with from most decks because I mean they can like Hex Maniac you or whatever, but um, it's really hard to like punish you like when you have this really solid draw engine. Obviously, it's like 4 cards isn't absurd, but it's just good. It's more than, as I said, most other draw engines. So yeah, you can pair this with Electrode if you want, and then you don't have to discard your hand every time. But I think it's really good. And I'm someone who likes to just kind of run through things as well. And not always, but sometimes I do, and it's obviously really great for that. And as I said, pretty much every Pokemon on this list was a basic. I guess the electric and Flaffy as well as the Electivire weren't. Luxray technically isn't, but it essentially is. So yeah, as I said, mostly basics, and yeah, once you're set up, you just kind of go. So you have a lot of basics that you can just attack with and just accelerate energy too as well. Like, as you said, you need energy in the discard, and it can actually be hard because you don't want to run too many, or else I mean then things won't go so well. So yeah, this is really great, and I don't know. I just really like this card. There's not too much to say about it. I'm just kind of rambling now, but it's a really good card. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, consider liking, subscribing, all the good stuff. And comment down below what Pokemon you think should have been on this list, or if you would have reordered any. As I said, I had some issues ordering this one. I was like, I had Electric and Flaffy at 1, tied for 1. And then I had like Zipstrike below them. At one point, I had Raikou, I think, higher, and I think I had Zapdos higher as well. Um, yeah, I think the top 5 are pretty clearly above the like top 10. So that's Zipstrika, Flaffy, Electric, Zapdos, and Raikou, and then the rest of the top 10 is Electivire, Thundurus, Luxray, Tapu Coco, Regieleki, and yeah. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I'm excited to see you in the next video.